The heart of Mountain Mind Tricks is the breakthrough session. My first breakthrough session was beyond any healing I could have ever imagined. The rapid transformation that happens in the breakthroughs blows my mind every time. Your perception is a projection. In other words, what you see in your reality around you is a projection of what you believe about yourself. Anytime you wish something was different in life, I teach you how to look inside and find the solutions. My favorite part about the breakthrough session is when we change something on the inside, the holograms around you start to change too. And what do I mean by holograms? Well, you gotta read the book Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot to fully get this idea. But basically, the synchronicities, the people, the events start lining up in ways you never thought possible when you become realigned after a breakthrough session. I love seeing the mind-body energy connection in action too. Your mind is stronger than anyone has ever told you because your thoughts and feelings affect your cells first and foremost. Check out the work of Bruce Lipton in the Biology of Belief. Bruce breaks down how your thoughts and feelings affect your cells through basic biology experiments. The breakthrough session upgrades your beliefs and reduces stress in your nervous system, which means you're upgrading the way your genes are expressed in your cellular biology. So I want you to go to mountainmindtricks.com and schedule a free discovery session to learn more. We have so many new opportunities here at Mountain Mind Tricks right now. I'm so excited. I'm so stoked on this. I want you to go to the website and check out the Leadership Accelerator if your mental health is affecting your performance on the line and at home. I want you to check out the energy session if you want to experience the healing power of ancient Hawaiian shamanism. We also support wildland firefighters during the fire season who are on light duty due to injury or mental health. In the Reset program, we offer the breakthrough session half off because we know you can't get your overtime. Upcoming this winter, we have the group coaching program, Expanding Situational Awareness. Such an amazing group of folks. We come together for transformation, for meditation, for going deep into release work together. Such a beautiful process, and it includes a mini breakthrough session. So I want you to go to mountainmindtricks.com and learn more about our programs. I'm so excited for our podcast today. We have the amazing Kevin, the author, Kevin Conley Jr., the author of Above the Ashes, here with us today. And I am just ecstatic to have him on the show because the book is so powerful. His experience, everything that he wrote about, the struggle he went through, I just resonated with so much of it. And I just want to say, first thing, I love you, brother. Like, thank you so much for writing this. Thank you so much for being so vulnerable. Like, our community needs this so bad. Like, this book is so important, and I appreciate your journey. And I guess I kind of want to start from the beginning a little bit of like, just to kind of paint the picture of where you were and what this journey was. Like, I kind of want to hear the hero's journey, like the transformation, and we're going to get pretty spiritual, pretty deep today, and pretty metaphysical, if you will. And I guess let's just start from the beginning, Kevin, of like, how did you get here, man?
Yeah, well, it's an honor to be here too, Thomas. I'm very excited to connect with you. And, I love you and all our firefighters, all our brothers out there on the line and sisters and everyone out in the world. We're all going to go through suffering, and we got to stick together. It's very important. And it's really important to speak out. So how it started, that's like the most interesting question, because I've baffled myself with trying to pinpoint what happened, right? And we do that so much in life. We're trying to figure out what happened, and sometimes there's not a this is it. There's not a pinpoint you put on the map where this is when it happened, this is why it happened. There's not always trauma. Sometimes it's all built up. It builds up over time because you never grieved or you never went through something. And for me, in my situation, in 2020, I worked in Yosemite National Park on a module there based out of El Portal. And after the season on November 9th, I was laid off, as we do temporary, seasonal employees. I was laid off and I went out to Big Sur and I had my first severe panic attack. And it was the most bizarre feeling. You feel like you're having a heart attack. You can't see straight. Like, I'm very social. I like couldn't even move my lips and talk. And like the whole world was like shaking and like just everything. It like just stunned me. It like froze me in time. And I didn't know how to react to it or how to calm my feelings. So I ended up just getting some beer to try to like calm down, and my hands were shaking and I couldn't figure out, like, I couldn't see straight. And that was my first big panic attack, and it lasted for probably like 4 hours. Constantly, my heart was just bumping out of my chest. And so that's where it all started that day. And then over the course of the next month, um, they happened every day and they just got worse and worse and worse. And then I had severe panic attacks for a year. And after about 6 months of feeling like I would never escape that feeling like I was going to die, like I'd have panic attacks in the morning, afternoon, at night, all day long. And I never thought I would leave that. That was my perspective. And that threw me into a depression after about 5 or 6 months. And then when I started getting depressed and not speaking about it, and being like so alone in my own head, was when it really got bad. But it all started in early November, right after I finished my last fire season in Yosemite.
Wow, man, and I can resonate with you so much because I think I would call it. I had a my engine captain passed away. My whole life just unraveled from there, and it ended up. I don't know if it was the same symptoms, but I really went through some similar stuff of like feeling like you're dying, like your heart is pounding, like all these symptoms are just like, what the fuck is happening to me? And it's just like daily. And wow, man, I just, when I was reading your book, I was just like, wow, yeah, this is sounds exactly what I was going through in a lot of ways, similar. And so I just want to make sure, and I know we know this, but I want to say it out loud. Like, there's so many brothers and sisters in our community right now going through this. And so it's so
100%.
important, so important we talk about it. So
100%.
I guess there's this piece of in the wildland fire community where this challenge you talk about in your book, like challenge builds character. Like that's so important and so powerful for us on the line. And I think there's a certain point where it crosses into the realm of kind of being detrimental. You know what I mean? Like we want to hit the challenge, we want to do the mission, we want to do the objective so bad that we really don't take care of ourselves. And I would love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, I believe. Well, I want to backtrack to what you were saying about so many people in our firefighting community go through this, if that's okay.
Yeah, please,
And
please.
then I'll answer the character build. What were you saying? Character builds.
Like challenge, you said in your book, like challenges really build your character, and I think we're going to take that a little bit deeper. But let's go back to like our community, and really there are people right now struggling with this.
Yeah, I was, and that's what I wanted to touch, because that was the first part you're saying, and it truly blew my mind when, like, the energy you put out is the energy you get in, and when you open up your mind, when you open up your heart to others, they get more vulnerable to speak their truth. And it was so fascinating and also very sad, when I started talking about what I was going through when I was on my bike ride, when I started writing the book, and when I was being vulnerable and authentic and just fucking raw, like giving my true emotions, like when I was suicidal, when I was sad, when I was hopeless, when I was depressed, like I told everyone the truth. And I feel like that's important and a stigma we need to break in men. And I was so fascinated with how many people, um, Army Rangers, Navy SEALs, hot shots, smoke jumpers, engine crews, all over the community of first responders were sending me, for the most part, it was private messages. And I was getting people messaging me like, I can't believe that you're doing this. You just gave me the hope to speak out about what I'm going through. And I just, like, I'd get a message like, I just talked to my sister about it. I just told my parents about it. And people that were on the same path as me, where they were drinking to get away from this, because where I was, I didn't have the courage at first to ask for help. I felt like I was so weak. Like, I'm a hotshot firefighter. Like, I could carry this, I could do this, I could
Mhm.
whatever. It doesn't fucking matter. Like, we're all going to go through adversity. If it's losing a loved one, if it's poverty, if it's going through whatever feelings, it's a guarantee that you're going to go through some shit in your life. And what I wrote in my book was like, these moments that you go through will define you, because how you rise up out of that moment and how you fight through it, you battle through the mud, and then you reach the top of the summit. Well, that's going to define your character, is how you rise above the ashes, how
Mhm.
you rise above the adversity that you're faced in. If you're gonna, you can't sit there and wither. And I do believe it's okay for a little bit. Like, for a little bit, we're just gonna feel this, and we need to go through it. And then there's a time in your life where you got to be like, all right, I got to fucking do something. I got to pull myself up. I got to get off the couch. I got to stop being, feeling these ways, and I got to figure out a solution to find peace in my heart.
Yeah, brother. I think it's so you're so right. Like those moments, and that's what I wanted to expand on, is like these challenges, like we on the fire lines, like yeah, you're carrying a QB with a pack and all the shit, right? Or the saw and the dolmar for some reason. Like who knows? You're going through that challenge, right? Physically, but there's a certain point, like you're talking about, like we've got to take that warrior mindset like internally, and we've got to become like a spiritual warrior or a mental warrior in a lot of ways to like you said, like really stand our ground in those moments when those thoughts, those feelings are like overwhelming. And I
Right.
just love that spirit of your book, man, of just like I'm here to fucking pedal out of this. And it's a gigantic metaphor of what we all need to be doing on like moving one pedal at a time towards a better mindset. Like, oh, it's a powerful message, brother.
Yeah, no, and that's so true. Is pedal, and the metaphor is like, you got to stop running. There's a point where you got to stop running. And when I was going through, like when I was deeply depressed, there was not a single person that was going to come and shake me and be like, "Oh, it's time to tune up and make a change." It takes you. It takes you as an individual to stand up, and the first part of that healing journey is to just say it out loud. And sometimes that's not to anyone else. Sometimes that's just being out in the woods, being in your apartment, wherever you are, just saying it out loud and hearing it. And then you got to start to forgive yourself and be like, it's okay what I went through. It's okay. I can get better. I remember, I mean, it took me over a year to learn a lot of these things, to learn that so much of what I was going through, it was hell in my mind, but I lived like a beautiful life for 33 years before that. It wasn't all perfect, ups and downs, of
Mhm.
course, but for so long when I was depressed and having my panic attacks, I thought that was it. Every day, this is what I'm going to go through. And my mind became so consumed in that I let that happen. And it took my mind to step back, to not run away from my problems, work through them, and then realize, even on a cloudy day, like, I could still run through the rain. It's going to be okay. And it's hard to find that. But one of the biggest hurdles that I overcame was my perspective. That was my perspective, was I'm depressed, I'm going to have a panic attack. I was scared to get in the shower, scared of tunnels, scared to, like, I felt trapped in a car, like my whole world was like closing in. I'd go for a 10-mile run, I'd make it a half mile, and I didn't like it. Like, I'd freak out. And my whole perspective was, this was my whole life, this is what's going to happen. But that wasn't my reality. I was making it my reality. So when I learned to shift my perspective and work through those issues, then my reality totally changed. But my reality was never that. It was in the moment, because I allowed it to consume me. And that's all I thought about. And when I started to let that go, when I didn't talk about, here comes a panic attack, here comes a panic attack, I didn't let it consume me. When I'd be out on my bike for 60 miles, there was no escape. There was no calling a friend, there was no going to the bar, there was no drinking a few beers, there was no escape other than to pedal and get through it. And fighting through those demons alone in the middle of nowhere with my dog Rocky, that's what changed my perspective, and in turn, I realized my reality.
Mm. Wow, brother, there's some heavy wisdom here, and I wanna save the reality and perspective changes. We're gonna get to it, and I think because we've got to go way deeper. And what I want to go back to something you said was like really being in charge of your thoughts, like being only I can do this, right? And I think even I do a lot of client work. I work with so many people, and the first step, like you're saying, is being at cause. Like, no, wait a minute, I caused this. I created this in my mind. And the next step is really empowering, like um, you are in charge of your mind, therefore your results. So you've got to get a handle of this, and it's being at cause is the first step. Like, maybe I did create this somehow, like, because that gives us the power to undo it, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it all well, the wild thing about that, Thomas, was I used all my tools at the beginning when it started happening and I started having severe panic attacks. I used the tools that I know, and I used to work wilderness therapy for a couple years and help teenagers and young males and females in their early 20s. And I had these tools, like I helped others, and then those tools, they didn't work. Like I was trying to tell myself things over and over when I was having a panic attack, positive thoughts and this and that, and go for a run. And it was so debilitating. I couldn't do it. It didn't work. And that's what was so difficult. And that's I started to feel hopeless. It was like I'd sit there for an hour and just be like, everything's okay. I'm okay. It's okay. I'm gonna make it through this. And yeah, I broke down more every day.
So something in your book that really captured me, brother, like it just captured my attention right away, was this: the first step is forgiveness, and then there's a gratitude for everything around you, and then there was like this feeling of love. And it really, like, that's how your journey was painted for me, of like, oh my god, like there he is, he's forgiving himself one pedal by pedal, always forgiving the other person, the people in his life, all the people. Like, there's so much forgiveness on this page and this part of the journey, and then it's just like gratitude. Oh my god, the power of gratitude. Like, i I that may be one of the most powerful emotions there is,
I agree.
is gratitude. And I would love to hear you just speak to that journey of forgiving everybody in your life, finding that gratitude, and really stepping into that love.
Yeah. Um, well, like kind of what we were talking about, I was trying to pinpoint like what went wrong. And I had all these ideas. And one of those big things that struck my mind was my little brother. I feel like he's 7 years younger than me. And I feel like I wasn't the best role model when he was growing up. I went through my own troubles growing up and maybe bullied him a little bit and pushed him a little too hard. And so that was one of my first steps of forgiveness, was like trying to right that wrong and be a better role model and big brother for him, which I've been working on for years. But gratitude is so important. And I read something a few months ago that was saying that gratefulness, and anxiety can't live in the same time. They can't live in the same energy. So I started. Uh, I didn't start. I started this on my bike ride, but I read that a few months ago. So a year ago, I just started waking up every morning, and I'd be pedaling like 100 miles a day, but I'd wake up and I would just think about things that I was grateful for. And it wasn't always, a big thing like, oh, I'm so grateful my mom carried me in her womb for 9 months and birthed me and nursed me and all that. Sometimes it was simple, like, I'm so grateful that, I can look up at the stars and I can hear the birds and I got water and I can walk around and I can see everything. Like, this is awesome. Like, life is fucking good. And it was like reminding myself every day when I wake up, and then when I go to sleep, or even sometimes through the day, but when I go to bed, like, thank you. Like, I had another gift, and that was today. And sometimes we lose so much focus on the moment that we're like looking towards the future. and I hate looking towards the past. Like, yeah, we can spend a little time there, but right now, that's all we have. There is no guarantee for tomorrow because tomorrow never comes, you know? So people forget, they're like, "I'll see you tomorrow." It's like, "I love you, brother. I hope I see you tomorrow." You know, like, I hope I do see you tomorrow. But right now is what's important, and how we impact and how we affect people and how we treat people and how we let people know we love them is so important. Gratefulness and showing it too. Like, you can be grateful in your head, but, like, tell people you're grateful. It's so important to express that, and when you let your love pour out, it will flow back in.
It's so man, I just these concepts are really spiritual. Any spiritual context, yoga, like meditation or like new age or like whatever you want to call it, even like the major religions talk about these three things like forgiveness, gratitude, love. Like, I guess to me, and people that know me know I'm going to always take it somewhere spiritual, metaphysical, but to me, it seems like there was some sort of experience of the divine that came in for you. Like, I'm curious. I mean, whatever that means to whoever, it's just a label. I mean, the only label I would use for that is maybe love. Like, there seems like there was an experience on that level that happened for you. I'm curious.
Can I talk about my worst week of my life leading up to my bike tour?
Yeah, please
Because I
do.
think my a very spiritual, very I what I prefer is, everyone has, it's like a bicycle wheel. There's all these spokes. There's every way that someone finds their way to the center. Some people believe in, Buddha or Catholicism or Mormon, Jewish, whatever it is, or energy. We're all trying to get to that circle of life, of energy, of love, whatever it is. And I had the wildest moments. So I wanted to kill myself twice in one week, 2 nights predominantly. And after the first night, I just didn't. I never felt that feeling in my life. I never felt so destroyed to the point that I wanted to make the selfish act. Like, I did not want to be here. And at first, I just wanted to disappear. I just wanted to, like, drive to Alaska, throw my phone out the window, and I don't know. I don't know where that was going. And it just got so dark that first night. I just want to kill myself. And I wrote into my book, like, if I owned a gun, I would not be writing this. And thank God I don't own a gun. And the next morning, I called my grandmother. She passed away a few months ago, and she's very, very religious. And her husband, my grandfather, World War II vet, he passed away about 10 years ago, and so she's been alone up in Pennsylvania. Everyone goes up. My mother and her sister spent time with her, but I called her, and I was just lost, and I had never felt that way that first night. And I didn't tell her that I wanted to kill myself or I was deeply depressed. I just said, I call her Grams. I said, Grams, is there, like, if I feel like a little lost in life, is there anything that you recommend I should do? And she said, yes. She said, go down to the nearest Catholic church and just go and sit there for a little while. And I bet you'll find some peace. And I said, all right. So my grandmother's name was Madeline. And I look up, I'm at the dog park with my dog, and I look up the nearest Catholic church, and there's actually a cathedral named the Cathedral of Madeline. It's named after my grandmother. Like, such a coincidence, I don't think so. And I go down there, and I might be the only person that's ever walked into a cathedral with a dog on a leash and a beer in the other hand. And they were in the middle of service, and I sat in the very, very back, and I felt some energy, God, if you will. I felt something. and I just sat in the back pew and I cried for an hour. I just put my hat down over my eyes and I just cried. And everyone walked by me, and there's a few people that like put their hand on my shoulder. And when the mass was done, I was the last one out of the church. And when I was walking out of the church, the priest, he's shaking everyone's hand, and everyone was gone, and he was walking to the back room. And I said, I had tears. My face was red, tears running down my face. I asked him if I could do confession, and I don't think I've done that since I'm 35 years old. I don't think I've done that since I was 14.
Mm.
20 years. And I went and did confession. Um, and yeah, that was part of my forgiving. And I came out of the church and I felt so like this weight was off my shoulders. I told him some real feelings, not all of them, because I still didn't have the courage. And I went back home and I felt good for about like an hour. Felt great, like someone touched me. I really felt that way. And then I started feeling funny again. It got dark out, and I said, "All right, I should go down to the church again." And it's all locked up. And at this point, I was like, "Oh gosh, I got to do something." And yeah, I went back to the church. I sat out on the front steps for a little while, and just sitting on the steps. And I've on and off believed in God my whole life. Um, there was something powerful to that day. My grandmother, her name's Madeline, going to the Cathedral of Madeline, and then just like this wave of emotions overtakes me, and it was the first time I really like spoke to anyone, was in confession, and not the best advice, it's a few Hail Marys and a few Our Fathers, and you're forgiven, but it felt good just to get that out. And then a few days later was the night I really wanted to kill myself, and I thought of all the ways I could do it. And either way you do it is selfish. There's no way to there's no other word to it. It's selfish because you're taking yourself from your family, your friends, and people that care about you and this whole world. You should seek help. Start with your family. Start with a stranger. Start with anyone, but seek help. Um, and the night I really wanted to do it, I figured the best way that I could do it was I could drive my truck as fast as I could, 90, 100 miles an hour into a wall. And without my seatbelt on, that would probably take me out. And I'd been drinking and I was lost, and I didn't want to live. I did not, I didn't want to be here at all, at all. Like in that moment, I wished I had a gun and I could end it in seconds. And I'm so grateful I didn't have one because I wouldn't be here. And so I grabbed my car keys, I turned off the lights, I got my dog Rocky, and I wasn't going to bring him. So I dumped out, I don't know, 7 days of food on the floor, gave him a kiss, and I got my keys in my hand. I'm walking out the door. And right as I got my hand on the doorknob, I feel this weight on my right shoulder. And I hear my dad in my head. I hear my dad. And he just says, and I could feel his hand on my shoulder. It was the most bizarre thing. I could feel it. It was like he was right there. And he lives in Virginia. I'm in Salt Lake City, and I just hear my dad in my head, and like something overtook me, and I just closed my eyes with my hand on the doorknob. I just closed my eyes, about to kill myself. And he just says, "You never give up. You never give up, son." And I turned around. And that's when I snapped in, and I was like, I got to make a fucking change now. But you want to talk about some energy? Like, what happened there? Like, between my grandmother sending me to that church, and then I
Mhm.
would have killed myself 100% if I didn't have that spirit in my head tell me, "You never give up, son. You never give up."
Wow, brother, I feel the energy of that actually over here. Like I've got goosebumps from that story. Like thank you so much for sharing. And I know it's in your book, but just hearing it straight from you is like Wow. That is that's a spiritual, that's a mystical experience. Like there's no way around it. Like you had an experience of energy of that's the moment. Wow. I love it. It's such a dark place. I know I've been there. I was suicidal many times in my life, many times. Just to be really open and honest, like I think in high school, I had a near death experience from overdosing on drugs. And that moment when I had that near death experience, that is what changed my life. I went from a really terrible teenager in all sorts of trouble to all of a sudden I was meditating and reading books about Buddhism and quantum physics and all. Like I just went straight up monk in high school after that,
I
and
love it. Hell yeah.
and so I've been there. I not that exact moment, but I hear you and I appreciate you and I resonate with your story so much. So thank you for being so vulnerable.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that's something like you speaking your truth and me speaking my truth. It's fascinating how many people go through, you know, suicidal thoughts, suicidal ideations, depression. It's almost like I almost feel like almost everyone I've ever met has gone through that and told me they've gone through that. I'm not making an assumption. When I wrote my book, when I went on my journey, so many people, hundreds of people reach out to me relating. And that's what blows my mind is I never knew that about any of them. Some of my closest friends never ever spoke about it. And that's part of the mission of why I wrote this book was I was so inspired by the people that reached out to me and told me what they had gone through, what they are going through. And I wanted to, as a man, tell my true story of what I went through and be vulnerable, be authentic and be raw and say it. Like it was so hard to write chapter 2 and 3. It was so hard to revisit that for 3 days in a row, reading, revising, but I did it because I believe this story can truly inspire and help other people because just as you said, like it resonates with you, like you felt these feelings and there's a point in our lives for everyone. You're going to feel something that's not top of the hill, the happiest moment of your life. Like every day is not your wedding day. And it's important for people to know they're not alone. Like I thought I was alone. I was a fool. Like I felt like I was the weakest person on earth. I felt like I was a wimp and I was embarrassed. I was so embarrassed for how I was feeling. Like that's bullshit. Like don't be embarrassed. How you're feeling is how you're feeling. Like don't be ever be embarrassed about that. And don't get me wrong, it's extremely hard to be like I'm nervous right now or like I'm really sad right now. I agree. That's not easy. And that's why I didn't talk about it for a fucking year. I'm
Mm,
not saying that's easy, but it's beautiful when you do, because almost immediately that night, when I heard my dad's voice come down, I called the Wildland Firefighter Foundation almost maybe 10 minutes after that. And I was like, I got to make a fucking change. And I left a voicemail. It was late at night. And Burke Miner, who runs the Wildland Firefighter Foundation after his mother, Vicky, I think he was the first person that I told I want to kill myself. And there was like a weight
mm,
lifted. It was like not like the weirdest weight. Like I honestly like that true, everyone says like, "Oh, there's a weight off my shoulders," or this off my chest. Like I truly like just saying it out loud, I like
mm,
re-examined that feeling. And it almost like sounded silly when I said it out loud. Not silly, like it was very, very serious. Um,
mm.
one of the most serious things you could say out loud. But I was like, I looked at myself and I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Like, what do you want to kill yourself? Like, I sort of like got out of my body and was like looking at myself like, you got to be kidding me. It's time you got to do something because nothing changes if nothing changes.
Mm. Yeah, that was a powerful piece in your book was like nothing's going to change if you don't change anything. Like that's number 1. You've got to change your environment, you got to change your behavior, you got to change, I mean, from a neuroscience perspective, like you've got to change your personality, like to change your reality. You know what I mean? Like
I love that. Yep, yep.
that's Dr. Joe Dispenza work, right? You've got to change your personality to change your reality, and that can be really hard for some people. And I guess was there my next question for you, was there a moment on your journey that was at that same level of mystical? Was there anything like that that happened on your bike ride?
Oh, there's a lot of those moments. To that level, to that extent, I'd say the biggest moment where I truly knew that I made a U-turn, I made a 180, and I was getting back on track was 1,500 miles in, and I was riding into Alpine, Texas, and I was on a 102 mile day, and it was 70 miles without any service, no phone service, no gas stations, no services on the road. And there was something about that day that I just snapped out of it. I like woke up. I was reborn.
Mm,
Like it's almost like I retaught my brain how to think. And yeah, it took 1,500 miles, and not everyone's going to have that opportunity to ride a bicycle that far. And it's not about riding a bicycle, it's not about hiking, it's about the journey that you take and understanding that you need to take a journey. And you can do that at any place. You can do that in a prison cell. You could do that, working your 9 to 5. You just have to accept the journey that needs to be taken, and it takes time. And when I got 1,500 miles in, I just had this outlandish feeling of peace overcome me as the sun was setting and I was rolling into Alpine, Texas. And I remember pulling over my bike into the woods and watching the sunset over these mountains and just like crying like tears of joy.
mm,
Like
mhm,
truly, just like I was like, I feel better. Like I wasn't thinking about my panic. I wasn't thinking about my depression. I like put it behind me. And I was just like, I was so happy to be like, I was there. I was there and I was like feeling the sunset, like, and just something clicked. And it took a while on my bike ride. I mean, 1,500 miles for me to truly get there. But when I got there, I never looked back.
mm, mm. Wow, that's so beautiful, man. I think like you popped. Like, I don't know, you broke through, like you awakened. Like there's so many ways to label it, which we don't even need a label. It's just so inspiring. So inspiring to have that change. And I think for me, the thing that stood out in the book was, well, one, literally, it's to me what I read, what I saw in the book was like it was just miracle after miracle after miracle. Like, I mean, people are just like, "Oh, here's $20," or "Oh, are you making such a big difference in my life?" Or like, "Oh my God, like I can't believe you're here." Like, just literally miracle after miracle. Like, "Oh my God, Kevin, like you're just spreading love." Like, it was such a beautiful process to read through. For me, the biggest thing was the on the reservation and the Apache natives singing you a song and blessing you and giving you safe passage through their lands. Like I read that and I was like, wow, that is like, and you write it in your book multiple times, like this doesn't happen to most white people. Like I don't know why they're doing this. Like I feel so blessed. And it was just like, that says a lot, man. That says a lot. And it just is such a powerful part of the book. Like I would love to hear, I guess I'd love to hear your perspective on that from from you directly.
Yeah, that was beautiful. I don't think there's something so amazing in life, Thomas, when you allow yourself to be vividly in the moment, when you allow yourself to be present, to be peaceful, just to be there. And I remember the night um, before I got onto the reservation, and there was a few people that warned me. They were like, "Oh, you shouldn't camp on the reservation. It could be dangerous." And I understand that perspective, with a grain of salt, because there is a alcohol problem on the reservation, so there are some people drinking too much and driving on those deserted lands. But my experience on, so it was the San Carlos Reservation in Arizona near the town of Peridot, was ridiculously magical. And it's me and Rocky, so I'm towing like 150, 170 pounds at some time, depending on how much dog food I got at that time. And we get onto the sacred lands, and I just feel like, gosh, it was almost like my mind took me back to a place where like I could see them like riding their horses across the road and shooting buffalo and climbing mountains. And I just could feel the energy of this sacred land. And when I got down, there was it's like a truck stop, and they have a, it's like the only cheeseburger you can get within 60 miles or whatever. I don't know the mileage. Don't quote me on that one, but I pull into Apache Burger at the truck stop, and two or two or three nights before, I got interviewed on Fox in Phoenix on the TV station. And so I give Rocky, every time I open his trailer, I give him water, I give him some food, and then I tie him up to his cart, and he's sitting out in the shade. No, I brought him in that time. I'm sorry. I brought him in, and I'm in the back of the line. There's probably 15 people behind me. And there's this big, I mean, he looks like a defensive lineman, like this huge, huge Apache Indian right in front of me. And we're sitting there, and Rocky's trying to jump on everyone's table, get their French fries, and I'm holding him down, and this guy turns around and he says something like, "You're that firefighter. This is Rocky, right? We saw you on the news the other night, last night or whatever." And I said, "Yeah." Like I'm trying to tell him, like, shh, like I didn't want any attention. And he's like, "Oh no!" And he looks out at the whole. Oh, gosh, there's 50, 60 people in the this big restaurant, and he goes, "Hey, this is the firefighter. He's riding his bike across the country, raising money for charity. This is Rocky." And all of a sudden, people start clapping and stuff, and he's with. So he's a a youth tribal leader up in the White Mountains, down on the reservation down there in the White Mountains, on the San Carlos Reservation. I'm sorry. And we order food, and it takes like an hour. And so I go out, sit outside, and me and Rocky are there. And he comes outside, and he's got 7 or 8 students with him. And he says, "It would be an honor if we could sing you a famous, not famous, an old Apache song to bring warriors and hunters back home safely." And I said, it'd be an honor for you. It'd be an honor for me. And the song was called "Going Home," and it's all in Apache. And he grabs his students, they're waiting for food, off the bus, and one of them grabs a drum, and they kind of circle around me and Rocky. And it was almost like Rocky could feel the music when he starts beating on the drum, and they start, it's teenager kids singing the song, and I'm standing back with the Apache leader, and we're watching them, and gosh, it was so emotional. Like it was all in Apache, it was all in their native tongue, so I didn't know anything they were saying, but you could feel it, like the emotions. There was just like you could feel the words and the music with the drum beating, and Rocky's kind of barking, like he's excited about it, not barking in like a vicious way. And it was one of the most wild, beautiful, magical moments of my life. Like I was so humbled. Like why did they choose to do this? And we were talking about energy. Like there was some type of energy where I was on their sacred lands, their ancestral lands, and they wanted to share that land with me and also give me a sense of peace and security. And it was like, it was so humbling. Like it just blew my mind. Like, how special is this moment I'm in? And it was so hard to leave that. Like that was one of the best moments of my life, just to feel that special, like they're honoring me with a sacred song that they've been singing for, thousands of years, going home. And then we rode off after we got our food, and I camped on ancient Apache lands out in the desert. And oh, so much of this journey, Thomas, like I was being reborn and I was becoming more clear. I was finding more clarity in my mind and more stability in my soul and my heart. And it was people like this. It was firefighters, it was strangers, it was the Apaches. It was just wild moments that would happen that were helping me get back to life, helping me find my center, find my heart again, and find like who I was, and like just calm the fuck down. And it was moments like that with the Apaches where they blessed me with this sacred song on their sacred land that helped me to like regain, reteach like who I am as a
Mm,
person.
mm, wow. Wow, I love that. Just like who I am. I think that's so so important. And what I'm hearing, like when you're talking about this present moment, just being in the moment with that song, is like beingness, like being, like not just like as in a verb, like we're not just to be, but we're being, like we're doing it actively, being right now. And like,
Amen. Amen.
oh, that word, just that comes from my mentor Danny, and just being is so powerful. Like that's the secret to life, I think, is
I'm with
come
you there.
come back to being, right? And I guess we've kind of talked about it a little bit with like reality, and I guess to me there's this point in your journey, like you just explained, in Alpine, Texas, where something changed, something popped. And I feel like I would love to go a little bit deeper in that idea of like maybe you literally changed your reality at that point. And I'm not saying like you changed realities. I'm saying like you changed how you perceive reality, like almost completely. And I would love to just get your thoughts on that. Like how because this is a technique in Huna, in Hawaiian shamanism, that I work with all the time, is like, well, when we change our personality, we actually change our reality and the way we perceive almost everything in our life. So it changes us. It's a perspective change, but it's also a change in reality. I would love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. It was I was on such a magical journey, and it started slow, and then it started immediately. So when I started on my bike ride, so I was riding my bicycle from, for people that don't know, from San Francisco, California, 3,500 miles to St. Augustine, Florida. And on the night before I left San Francisco, so before the first day I started riding, I had a severe panic attack with my friend Leash, Mummy, a firefighter I know was in town. We shared a hotel for the night, and we went out to get some food. And right when the food came, I just like broke down, and I was like, I gotta go. And she was so compassionate. It was really nice, actually, because I was really embarrassed, and I was like, I gotta go. I don't feel well, and she knew. So I went home, and then it was just like almost immediately out of the blocks when I started on this journey. So I went from a year depressed, panic attacks, 2, 3, 4 times a day, and then the first day I started riding my bicycle across the country, I received messages from so many people that wanted to help me. And my dad's friend Alan Haynes watched my dog for 4 days so I could cover some serious ground coming out of Santa Monica. And then my friends came down and saw me in Manhattan Beach. And then I had the Apaches, you know, that what we just talked about. And then firefighters helped me all across Texas. And I feel like my perspective changed because I started understanding what I've always understood. And so I'm a long distance hiker and runner and cyclist. And I started to understand what life is again. and I forgot that feeling. Like the worst feeling that I forgot was hope. I lost hope. I lost hope for tomorrow. I lost hope for ever getting out of this depression. I lost hope for ever feeling better. And I started to feel hope again. And that's your perspective, right? Like your perspective is what you think is going to happen in the future. And I started to forget about, more importantly, I started to forget about the future. And I started to settle in with now, which is reality, right fucking now. What am I doing right now? I'm sitting in a fucking drum circle with Apaches singing me a ancient song going home. You know, I'm spending the night at the Globe Hot Shots base in Arizona. Like I'm hanging out with firefighters in Silver City, New Mexico, and we're having dinner together, breaking bread, and we're talking about like real things in life that matter. And I was focused on now. I couldn't on such a big journey. I was focused. There's no way in hell when I'm in San Francisco, I'm thinking about, oh gosh, I wonder what's like gonna be in Texas. What's gonna be like in Florida? Oh, I can't wait.
Mhm.
No, I never thought about tomorrow ever. I was so right there, and that brought me back to life. The people, I had to fight for it. I chose to go on this journey, but the people of this world, and it's people like you that can help people. It's all about that. Like we're all connected. There's like this crazy spider web, and we're all connected, and we need to be nice to each other, take care of each other. And I was so humbled by the response I got from wildland firefighting community, the people that stepped up and helped me all along the journey. They like it was like CPR. People were like breathing me back to
Mhm.
life. There was day by day, I'm alone on my bike, but I could feel this energy. I'd get these messages, these phone calls from people, we could watch your dog for a day or two, so you could crush some big miles on your bike. And it was these moments where I couldn't look forward. I couldn't look backward. I was right there. And that's what you're talking about, like in reality versus looking at my perspective. And I only had two panic attacks in those 52 days on my bike.
Wow, brother. I love that so much. And I think what I'm hearing, like from my perspective, is it's almost like you realized all these things in your mind were just illusions. Like it's just things we make up, right? We make a lot of things in our life, right? We make a lot of things with our mind, but really, like, there's only a couple things that are created. Like love is part of creation, right? Like our beingness is part of creation. Like, but we try to make things up in the future in our mind constantly, and to come back to that beingness, like it sounds like you just dropped all the illusion, which is like, no, I'm here. I'm in love right now. Like with right now, I'm in love. And
No
wow.
doubt. No doubt.
Wow, brother. That's amazing. I love it.
Well, we do get lost, and I stress is like the most dangerous drug. And
Hmm.
people get stressed about tomorrow, next week. Am I going to make that deadline? Am I going to do this? Like, let it go. Let
Yeah.
it go.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much. Like, the only thing you have control over is your actions and reactions. Like, you can't fuck around with tomorrow. You can't change
Mhm.
how David down the street feels. You can't change what Betty just did when she hit your car. No, fix your flat
Right.
tire and move on. And there was just like, it was crazy. But when I was going through I went to the emergency room, I think 7 or 8 times last year, and God, my blood pressure was off the roof. Like it was reality. Like when my blood pressure was like 220,
Mm-hmm.
230 over 110, 115. Like it was real,
Mm-hmm.
but
Hmm.
I gave more life to it. It was like a little egg hatched, but then I fed this chicken. I made this chicken fucking big. Where
Right.
I didn't have to,
Right.
and then I
Right.
learned to. That's a bad analogy. I killed that fucking chicken, but you know what I mean. Like I learned to exercise was my biggest weapon, and that's what helped me so much on my bike ride. Like I
Mm.
woke up and before my mind could go to a dark place, I already rode 25, 30, 40 miles, and I made my heart beat a little faster.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
think that's what was so positive. Exercise will change your life.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to go back to something you said as stress being the most dangerous drug. And from what I do is really like I don't want to use the word medicine because I'm not a doctor, but it's like it comes from a mind body medicine world, or like integrative psychology, which means mind body. And from the alternative practitioner perspective, 99% of illnesses, diseases, of psychological issues are stress related. In other words, it's the root cause is
Mhm,
stress. And so
mhm.
what I do from a medical perspective is I reduce stress for people. And so like I want to make sure to acknowledge what you just said is like so profound and so true. There's so much science on that, that stress is like it is detrimental to our health. And like you're saying, like I had a panic attack and it's real because I went to the ER and I have high blood pressure. Like, no doubt, like when our mind believes something it's real, it's fucking real. Like there's no question that disease is real, but it's only real because you made it real. You see what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
so, man, the mind body energy connection is, I could spend 20 hours talking on that. It's so like powerful. So I guess as I'm reading your book as well, that kind of on the same topic is like the book The Body Keeps the Score, right? And the exercise and the movement, like not only are you moving your body to raise those chemicals and all the things physiologically, but you're moving through those emotions, but you're also moving the stuff that's like stored in the body. Like you see what I mean? So I think there's
Right.
so many aspects of your journey that's just it just makes sense that you literally had a mystical experience, you healed yourself, you pedaled through the demons, and I just wow, you're inspiring. You're a
Oh,
superhero,
thanks,
brother.
man. Oh, no. Yeah, it's so enlightening when you start to understand yourself. And,
Mm,
growing up, as a teenager, you think that, when you're like 16, you think you're the shit. Like, you don't know shit. You know, when you finally turn 18, you're like, oh, well, that wasn't as special as I thought it was fixing to be. And then when you turn 21, you're like, oh, it's not that cool to go, to the bar, but you think you're so cool. And then when you really become a man and become comfortable with yourself, like allow yourself to understand yourself. We're not perfect. Like I could tell you a million ways that I'm not, the best that I can be. I understand that. That doesn't mean I'm not proud of myself, but I accept who I am. I accept who
mm,
I am and I strive to be better. I tell myself this week, like, I should have ran a little further. So, you know what? Next week I go run a little further. And you got to speak that out loud. And when
mm,
you speak that to like friends and family, I'm using running as like a metaphor for anything. When you speak that to someone, then you feel it even more because now you're accountable too.
Oh, I love that so much. And to take that to the next level, which I'm sure you do already, is like not so much I'm gonna try and run more, but I'm going to run more. And
I'm going to, yeah.
it just happens. You speak it out loud, and your word is law. From a metaphysical perspective, your word is law. What you say will happen. And so, oh, I
I
love
love
that.
that. Your word is law. I love that. Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, with all my
Absolutely.
with all my big endeavors in my life, Thomas, I've always I don't it's like a subconscious thing that when I say it out loud to someone. So like when I called Burke Minor and I said, I feel like shit, I want to end my life, I'm gonna ride my bike across the country. What I said was law. I haven't heard that
Mhm.
expression, but like in my mind, it's like I said it out loud. I'm a man of my word. I got to do it, and I've done that with a dozen different things, and then I do it because now I believe in it. But now I can't like I said it. I said it out loud, and
Yeah.
someone else knows, so I got to make it happen,
That's right. That's
and
right,
it's
man. That's right.
beautiful.
Oh, yeah, I love it. I love it. So I mean, I want to save a special place here for Rocky. I mean, God, I would love to hear his perspective on this journey as a dog. That's so funny. But I guess, like, how did he? like because he went through so many strangers. He went through so many different trucks and vehicles and people and houses and hotels, and I just like most dogs probably would have freaked out the whole time, you know? And I just like I'm curious on how Rocky took the whole journey.
He might be like Kramer on Seinfeld, where he's just laughing all the time and running into your room and having a good time. He is, gosh, I think he was sent to me. Like, we're talking about this energy, this deeper stuff, like how just magical things happen that, you couldn't predict. You couldn't write this down, it just happened. And Rocky's a trooper. Rocky actually, when we were in Florida, he was staying with another firefighter. He actually did the pack test. So
Oh yeah.
they said he's an honorary firefighter for the Forest Service in Florida. But no, he was a trooper. He was a trooper. I actually felt bad. So I had him in a trailer. I was towing him because it's not safe to have a dog run alongside you. And no, every time he popped out of there, we'd take long breaks and he'd run through the desert. And I've never seen a dog happier in my life. And
Mm.
he's a true companion. He's a true companion, and he's so loyal, and he's so protective. And I don't think most people have dogs as happy as Rocky is. No, I love that dog.
Oh man, he's such a special, special being. Like I could just feel his energy in the book. Like, wow, Rocky is just it's almost like he kind of anchored you. I don't know that why I feel like that, but he like kind of anchored you and like I'm not alone, you know what I mean? Or like there's some sort of like companionship that really was just so important for you. And that's just my I don't know, my personal interpretation.
No, I
But
totally agree. I don't know if my no, I do know. My journey would never have been the same if I didn't have him.
mm,
He changed everything. It was those small, big moments, if I can use a phrase like that, those small, big moments where I like was done and I just like, didn't throw my bike down, but just like threw it down in the desert. And I was like, this is fucking hard. And then he'd run around, he'd come like lick my face, and I'd be like, it's okay. Everything's
mhm,
okay. And oh gosh. And he also like, I swear there's so many people across the country that will always remember Rocky. They might never know my name, but I swear Rocky's like a little celebrity for those 3,500 miles. Everyone knows him.
yep, that's right. I know it's so funny. Everywhere in your book is like, yeah, it's like people don't recognize me, but they recognize Rocky in the restaurant or the gas station. Like, oh, is that Rocky? It's so funny. Like, so, oh man, what a journey you were on. And I mean, is there anything else you want to talk about, brother? Like, we could go anywhere. I'm curious. Is there anything we haven't touched on? Is there something deeper, something else you want to talk about?
Oh, we could talk about a million things. Um, I think it's important that people understand that we will never know the impact that we have on other people. And I want to use an example when I say that. I was in Portland, Oregon, probably 7 or 8 years ago, way before I ever went through anything in my head, where I did not understand panic. I didn't understand anxiety. I didn't understand depression. Those were words. I understood what they meant. I didn't understand the feeling. And to truly understand something, you must go through it to be empathetic.
Mm-hmm.
And I was walking over this bridge and going back to my friend's house all alone. And I'm walking back and I'm on the high peak of the bridge. And there's a guy just crying. And he walks by me. And my heart just speaks to me like, say something. And so I turned around. I said, hey, man, what's going on? And this guy is just, you could just feel the devastation in his face, his being, like how he's standing, how he is. And he says, I'm about to jump off the bridge. And I said, all right, well, you want to talk for a minute? And we sit down and we talk for a little bit. And it's bitter cold, and we just talked. And he didn't want to be alive. I never understood that till 8 years later. and he was fixing to jump off that bridge, and we sat down, we talked, and we kept talking, and we walked off the bridge together. And he didn't kill himself that night. And it's moments like that where we got to step back and we got to understand every friend that you've ever had in your entire life has always been a stranger at some point. And the impact that you can make on people by simply listening and being there for someone can change someone's perspective. And it might not be forever, but that moment is all you have. So give your all when you can.
Mm. Mm, wow, that's such an amazing experience, so much wisdom, and I think something I did pass over that I want to make sure we talk about a little bit more is exactly what you're talking about, the power of gift, like the power of giving. And in your book, there's so many times like this person gave you this, or they helped you with Rocky, or there's so much generosity, so much kindness in your book. But there's one moment in the book I really want to hit on, and that was that moment with the homeless person that was deaf.
In New
And
Orleans?
and New Orleans, and you're like giving this person, you're trying to talk to them, but maybe you're not sure like what's happening. And then this person just at the perfect timing walks up and is like, yeah, signs language. Like, holy shit, how is that even possible?
Insane,
So
insane.
right? And so it goes through this whole process where you're buying the guy lunch and you're hanging out, and it's just like the power of gifting, the power of giving. I think what you said almost right off the bat when we started was like, when you give love, it comes right back to you. And that is one of the deepest like spiritual concepts there is, of just like generosity and kindness. It's so interesting when you give love from your heart, not expecting, like when you give it, it comes right back to you in some sort of miraculous form, like every time.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
no
pretty
doubt.
powerful, pretty powerful. And I don't know, is there anything you want to speak to that too?
I believe, Thomas, it goes back to what we were talking about, like with energy and your spirit.
Hmm.
Things happen for a reason if you let there be a reason. There's not always a reason. You can always find one. Things happen because you believe in them and you make it happen. You can put a reason to anything in life, you know, but when you let things happen, when you believe in them, they happen. And so, what Thomas is talking about is when I was in New Orleans, my dad came out and supported me for 11 days on my bike tour. And I had to drop him off at the airport, got back to the hotel, and I took Rocky out, and we are gonna go get. We are taking the day off, and I could not walk. That was the weirdest thing, Thomas. I couldn't. My it was my left leg, right leg. Gosh, I can't remember. My left like quad like seized up. Like I was like I should be on crutches. It looked like how I was walking, like I was like a fucking pirate or something.
Right.
But I could pedal. I could ride a bike. I could not walk. I could not walk. You'd think I was like a gimp or something like that, but I could pedal, and that's all that mattered. But I take Rocky down to this little bar, and I was like, "Oh, it's our first day off, and like 1,000 miles." And I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna get a mimosa, something like that." And I walk in and get a mimosa, and I'm sitting outside, and I've done homeless work for years now, helping helping the less fortunate. Is very important to me, and that's how I was raised. My mother and father are tremendously generous to veterans and less fortunate people my entire life. So I was blessed with learning and understanding that since I was a little boy. And I see this homeless guy out on the corner, and I couldn't read a sign from where I was sitting. But I just drove my dad to the airport, and I was kind of sad he was leaving. Like he was my first like person to be there. It's my dad. It's my role model, and he's out there, and I drive him back to the airport after 11 days, and I'm sitting there drinking a mimosa, and I miss him. And I'm just kind of like, I did the whole journey up to that point alone, and now I'm alone again. And I'm sitting there thinking about shit, and I see this homeless guy, and I was like, I want to go see if this guy, he's definitely lonely. Like, let me go see if he wants some food. And it was the most bizarre thing because my mother's going blind, which is one of your senses. And I read a sign. It says, I'm deaf. I want some food, something like that. And like, I can relate to that. Um, I have empathy for that. I don't know what it would be like to not be able to hear anything, but I know helping my mother what it's like to not be able to see. And she can see a little bit out of her peripherals. But that was the wildest thing was I walk over to him. He's got the sign, I'm deaf. I'm hungry. And I walk over and I'm trying to talk to him before I read his sign. I read his sign. I realize he can't hear what I'm saying. And I'm like, gosh, I want to, like in my head, I'm like, I want to tell this guy, like, I want to get you some food. Like, what do you want? Some water? You need something. We're in New Orleans. It's fucking 100 degrees and humid. And just by like the energy, a miracle, God, whatever you want to call it, this lady's like on her way back to work after a lunch break or whatever, like business, like professional. And she walks by and she goes, what are you trying to say to this guy? And I said, he's deaf. And she goes, I know sign language. And so I'm telling her what I'm trying to say, like, do you want to get some food with me? And she's like signing it to him. She's doing sign language. And it was like, how did this just happen? There's like hundreds of people walking by every moment. And this wonderful woman, like on her way to work, has to be there real soon, takes time out of her day. And she's like, I know sign language. I can help you. And me and this deaf guy, she signs to him, and we go and we eat lunch together. And it just sat there in silence. I don't know sign language. And it was so comforting because I was kind of sad
Mm,
that my dad was leaving, and I'm sure he's been sad for a long time, unfortunately, for the position that he's in. And we just sat there and we didn't talk. We just were there for each other. And he'd like smile when I try to say something. Like I try to do sign language, like put my hands together, like I'm praying for you. Try to do that sign,
mm,
and then like point to him, and he would just smile and look at
mm,
me. And there was something beautiful about. There was no words that were ever said, but there was energy being spread, and there was the feeling of love. There was the feeling of we're connected, and working with homeless people is so hard because it's a band-aid on a fucking whale. Like, I'm helping you for lunch, but like I won't be here for the next 10 years. Like I can't help you long term, but that's where we go back to perspective, moment, reality.
mm,
Right now, everything's okay.
mm, mm.
And that's what matters.
Powerful. Hmm. So powerful, brother. I love it. I love it. And wow, such an amazing story. Like your whole book. I just like, oh my god, man, it's just an amazing read. Um, for people that haven't seen it yet, I made a like an editorial review of the book. Like it really hit me in a lot of ways. Like just really powerful, especially like your dad being out there for 11 days. I thought that was a really special. Like, man, I think most men and their father like crave something like that. So like you're blessed with such an amazing that's just a huge part of the book is that journey
Oh,
with your
truly,
father.
truly, truly blessed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, what's next for you, brother? Like what's your next plan? What's like I know you got the new book coming, like it's out and you're selling copies like crazy. Like what's next for you?
That is a great question. But we talked about living in the moment.
That's true.
I'm teasing. I'm oh, I haven't said this out loud and I don't know if I want to do it, but I might go back to fire
Oh, I love
uh
it. I love
next
it.
season. Um well, I'm recording an audio book, my book audio, and then I'm gonna train like I'm going for fire season. I'm also writing another book.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, they comes in threes, I think. I like I just I couldn't stop writing after my first one. I love it. Oh, that's so good. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Can we ask what it's about, or is it too early?
Well, I got like 6 different topics. The book I wanna write next, I wanna keep practicing, to get better
Hmm.
and better. You gotta focus on what you're doing. And, I wanna write a book called 11 Years, which is focused on the last 11 years that I've lived. So I've hiked the Appalachian Trail, Pacific Crest Trail, ultra marathons, and Hurricane Harvey, Burgers and Love, and, a lot of different cool I wanted to do, like, a short story, something that, like, had a lot of
Mm,
chapters, but had, like, really cool stories. I think that would be a really fun book to write.
mm.
Um, I got a few ideas, but I'm I'm so I'm like 90% wanna go back to fire.
Oh, I love it.
So, yeah, I don't know what's fixing to happen. Um, I'm back home right now, trying to help my family and focus on selling this book. And the book is just so much greater than me. And I wrote that on my wall. Like this book has a greater purpose than myself because
Mm,
I believe this book will help other people. And, you know, just with my experience being a wildland firefighter, I wanted to relate to wildland firefighters. But it can reach anyone that has went through, what you and I have gone
mm,
through depression, through bad times, through, panic, anxiety, through stress, through anything. Like I just want to be authentic and tell a true story. Like it's so important in life to be true to yourself and don't do it for anyone else. Be true to yourself.
mm. I love that. I love that message, brother. Be true to yourself. It's so true. So important. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you. Like, is there like, I feel so complete, and I just want to thank you for who you are. Thank you for your journey. Thank you for writing this book. Thank you for everything, everything that you are. Like, I see your light. I see your love, brother. Thank you so much. And any final words before we? Of course, we want to shout out the website and your Instagram and those things. But is there any final words before that?
I would love final words, and it was so wonderful to connect. And what a privilege. Thank you so much for having me on here. And I'm just very honored to be on your podcast. And yeah, it's a treat. I would love to say one thing and then can I read a short poem?
Oh, please. That would be a blessing.
Okay. My first note is never ever give up. You are never alone. And please never give up. I wrote this poem a couple days ago. It's not that good, but it might be all right. Panic or anxiety or depression may always be a part of me, but that is it. It's only a fraction and not who I am, nor will I ever allow it to define me or take my life over ever again. I am in control and I steer the ship. Life will have more adversity and more obstacles in my future, and that ship may go a little off course. However, I will sit there and feel those emotions. I will be with the waves, and those moments, they will all pass. And I will guide my ship back onto its course. I won't run from my feelings. I will learn to deal with them, understand them, and heal through them. You cannot change a cloudy or rainy day, but you can throw on a rain jacket and go jump into a puddle, and you can smile and dance again.
Mm, love it. Oh wow, I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you. How can people find you? How can they get the book? How can they follow you?
Yeah, the only way to get the book is kevintheauthor.com. And then The best way to follow me is on Instagram, which is Backcountry Ninjas, plural ninjas. Backcountry Ninjas.
Awesome, awesome. I gotta ask, where's the Backcountry Ninjas come from? Because I love that name so much. Like when I saw that, I was like, oh, it's amazing. Like tell us more about the name.
Yeah, in 2014, the year after I finished the Pacific Crest Trail, hiking Mexico to Canada, I started a t-shirt company for long distance hikers and sold a bunch of t-shirts that year. And so the reason we have the name is because my buddy, so my trail name's 30 Pack, my buddies Rub-a-Dub and Steamer, we used to put on this Japanese pop song. So we didn't know any of the words, but it had like a really stellar beat. And we would do karate in the middle of nowhere, like high up in the Sierras or the Cascades, and we'd be knocking down branches on trees, and we'd have sticks and do big karate kicks in the middle of nowhere, and we were just backcountry ninjas,
Oh
just for
man.
fun. That's how it all started.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, for everybody listening, thank you so much for being here, for listening to this podcast. We just thank you for your presence and please check out the book. Like just sit down and read it. It is incredible. It's going to change your life. There's some power in this book. Like I really think there's some energy you put in this book that's healing. Like it really is a powerful book, brother. And so thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.